Some hearts fear what they can't understand, and nothing terrifies a shallow soul more than a woman who feels deeply and sees clearly. If you found this message, it's not by chance. It finds a certain kind of woman, the rare kind, the one who has always felt too much, seen too far, and carried truths long before she could name them. You've felt it, haven't you? That quiet ache of being misunderstood, of watching affection slowly turn into distance, warmth into envy, closeness into something that stings, and for years, you blamed yourself for it. You thought maybe you loved too intensely, spoke too honestly, forgave too quickly. But what if the truth is different? What if the very thing that draws people to you is also what their shadows cannot bear? They will call it love. They will speak softly, their voices carrying the weight of admiration. But watch closely. Admiration that cannot coexist with peace soon curdles into envy. You'll notice it in the pauses, in the way the air shifts when you enter a room. The smile lingers a second too long. The compliment feels like a thread that pulls something loose inside you. It's affection that studies you, not affection that holds you. Because your stillness unsettles those who live in chaos. Your clarity exposes their confusion. And your spiritual intelligence, the way you understand without judging, the way you forgive without forgetting, it reminds them of what they've buried beneath the noise. Most people are not afraid of darkness. They are afraid of seeing, and you make them see. There's a quiet danger in being a mirror. Everyone claims to want truth until it shows them the parts they've denied. And that's when affection becomes tension. When warmth turns into subtle sabotage, the kind that hides behind phrases like, "You've changed," or "You think you're better now." They don't hate your light, they hate their reflection in it. The envy of those who pretend to love you doesn't announce itself with cruelty. It moves slowly, politely. It appears as concern, as advice, as playful teasing. It wears intimacy as camouflage. But beneath the tenderness lies a quiet wish that you would shrink just a little so they could breathe again in your presence. Spiritually intelligent women carry an invisible gravity. They bend reality around them, not through power, but through perception. Their calm is confrontational. Their silence unmasks deception. They move differently, not chasing, not proving, simply being. And that being exposes every performance around them. To the ones who live behind masks, that kind of authenticity feels violent. It burns through pretense, like sunlight through fog. So they offer love, but only the kind that demands your dimming. They adore the version of you that feels safe to them, not the one that is seen through illusion. They want your empathy, not your insight, your softness, not your sovereignty. But there comes a moment, inevitable, when you refuse to apologize for your light, and in that moment, you become the mirror they can no longer look into. That's when love retreats, and the shadow steps forward. And if you've ever felt affection turn to coldness without warning, you've already met it. The envy disguised as love. Come closer, because in the next few minutes, you will finally understand the pattern that has followed you all your life, and learn how to never let it dim your light again. They envy what they abandoned in themselves. That's the hidden truth most never admit, because envy is never about what you have. It's about what your presence reminds them they've lost. They look at you, and somewhere deep inside, something whispers, "I used to be like that." Before the pretending, before the masks, before the compromises that turned aliveness into performance, you awaken the memory of their unlived life, and that is unbearable. You see, envy doesn't start as hatred. It begins as grief, a mourning for the parts of the self they buried to survive. Your depth mirrors the freedom they once traded for approval. Your peace exposes the chaos they normalized as love. But here's what makes it even more complex. It all happens unconsciously. They don't wake up thinking, "I'm jealous." Their shadow, the repressed part of their psyche, recognizes in you what their conscious mind has long denied. Their unconscious reads your unconscious, and in that silent recognition, their own buried pain begins to stir. That's when projection begins. They start to feel tension they can't name, and instead of looking inward, they act it outward through small words, tones, gestures, a glance, a laugh, a pause. They don't even realize their envy has begun to speak for them. When a spiritually intelligent woman enters the room, she doesn't just walk in, she rearranges the emotional temperature. Her energy is not loud, but it disturbs what's false. Her calm reminds others how anxious they've become. Her empathy exposes how disconnected they feel. And instead of asking, "What is she showing me about myself?" the wounded ego whispers, "She thinks she's better." Because it's easier to resent the mirror than to face the reflection. That's the paradox of spiritual intelligence. It threatens those who confuse emotional comfort with love. They crave your light, but resent what it illuminates. They want your warmth, but not the awareness that comes with it. You've probably felt this contradiction 100 times. When someone says, "You're such a good listener," but grows cold the moment you speak your truth. When they ask for your advice, then twist it into something to mock later. When they claim they adore your calm, but start to provoke you just to watch you lose it. They don't want your wisdom, they want your containment. They want your energy to soothe their storm, but not to expose its cause. It's not love that turns into envy. It's fear that disguises itself as love. Fear of being seen, fear of being measured against your wholeness. And this fear doesn't only live in strangers or partners. It hides in family, in friendships, in mentors who once adored you. Because the more you grow into self-awareness, the more you outgrow their unspoken contracts, those silent agreements where your dimming kept them safe. And when you no longer play small, you break the illusion that love must be earned through shrinking. That's when their shadow stirs. Because if your peace is possible, their chaos has no excuse. So remember, their envy is not proof that you're too much. It's proof that they've forgotten their own depth. And every time they project that loss onto you, they're simply showing you where they stopped loving themselves. And yet, if this is what happens when you see, what kind of woman does it make you? In the next part we'll meet her. The one Jung called the priestess of light, the mirror who heals by existing. There is a reason why the world misunderstands you. Because you were never meant to blend in, you were meant to perceive. Spiritually intelligent women carry the archetype of the priestess, not in religion, but in awareness. She walks between worlds, the seen and the unseen, the spoken and the silently felt. She doesn't dominate, she decodes. When she speaks, she doesn't argue, she reveals. When she listens, she doesn't just hear, she reads. And that alone unsettles those who fear being known. You don't chase truth, you become it. That's why they react, not to your words, but to your vibration. Because your very existence whispers to their unconscious, "Wake up." Jung once wrote that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But not everyone wants transformation. Some resist it with all their might. And when their unconscious meets yours, the truth they've avoided begins to move. That's why people project. That's why envy feels personal, when in truth, it's impersonal. It's not about you, it's about what your presence awakens in them. Your clarity exposes the fog they thought was light. Your calm reminds them of the peace they've abandoned. Your emotional depth mirrors the life they never dared to live. And so they call you intimidating, intense, mysterious, anything that helps them avoid seeing themselves. You are not the cause of their discomfort. You are the mirror of their silence. This is the paradox of the priestess. She does not seek power, yet her existence disrupts false power. She doesn't seek attention, yet her authenticity commands it. Her serenity feels like rebellion to those addicted to noise. Her boundaries feel like rejection to those addicted to control. But she is not here to fix, to convince, or to prove. She is here to witness, to hold the mirror steady until truth appears. And if you carry this archetype, if you have ever been punished for your insight, dismissed for your sensitivity, or envied for your calm, then know this: you are not fragile. You are ancient. You came with the gift of sight, and that gift will always reveal both the light and the shadow around you. So stop trying to make your light smaller so others feel safe. The priestess doesn't apologize for her vision. She simply learns to protect it, with silence, with distance, with discernment. Because the moment you stop explaining yourself, your power returns to you, and those who once fed on your clarity will either evolve or fade. You are not their mirror anymore. You are the flame they must face on their own. And as you rise in that awareness, the same dynamic begins to change. Because the very ones who once admired you will start to turn, not out of malice, but because the illusion of equality dissolves in truth. That's where the next story begins. When admiration begins to rot into envy. At first, they love you for your light. They call it inspiring, calming, magnetic. They say things like, "You're different, you make me feel safe," and for a moment you believe them. But what they really mean is, "You make me feel seen," until it's too much. Because admiration, when untouched by self-awareness, has an expiration date. The same eyes that once looked at you with awe begin to narrow in quiet resentment. The same voice that once praised your strength starts to question your tone. And the same warmth that once drew you close begins to demand that you shrink. This is the slow death of false love. It never ends with a scream. It ends with a silence that feels like suffocation. You'll notice it in the subtle ways they change around you, how your truth begins to irritate them, how your peace becomes too cold, how your boundaries are mistaken for arrogance. At first, they adored your honesty, then they started calling it harsh. They loved your calm until they realized they couldn't control it. They admired your independence until it made them feel unnecessary, because people don't envy what they understand. They envy what they can't explain. And nothing is more unexplainable than a woman who has stopped begging for love. Their unconscious begins to wrestle with yours. The same shadow that once admired your light now wants to eclipse it. They don't know why they feel irritated, jealous, defensive, they just do. Their unconscious interprets your strength as a threat to their illusion of safety, and so the shift happens. Love becomes comparison. Respect becomes rivalry. The relationship turns into a quiet contest. Who feels more needed, who speaks softer, who hurts less visibly. They start to feed on your energy subtly, through guilt, flattery, or doubt. They will project their insecurity onto your empathy, turning your understanding into responsibility. They will say, "You've changed," when what they really mean is, "You've stopped being who I could control." And when they can no longer reach you through affection, they reach you through confusion. Suddenly you find yourself explaining things that don't need explanation, apologizing for peace, questioning your intuition. This is how envy works, not as rage, but as erosion. It doesn't destroy all at once. It slowly convinces you to doubt your clarity, because envy cannot survive beside awareness. It must dim what it cannot match. They will never say, "I'm envious." They will say, "You're distant." They will say, "You make me feel small." But what they truly mean is, "Your freedom reminds me of my cage." And yet, even then, compassion remains your nature. You will try to understand them, to love them through it. But love cannot heal what refuses to be seen. This is the hardest truth for women like you to accept. You cannot rescue someone who is committed to misunderstanding you. You can only choose not to drown with them. Because the more you defend your purity of heart to those who envy it, the more you lend them the power to rewrite your story. So let them misinterpret, let them gossip, let them create their version of you. Your peace does not need a witness, because in the end the envy of others is not your punishment, it's your initiation. It's life's way of asking, will you still shine even when the world mistakes your light for arrogance? And if you do, if you can keep your soul steady in the storm of projection, you become something rarer than admired. You become untouchable. Because once you see how envy disguises itself as love, you can finally learn how to protect the only thing it ever wanted to steal your essence. And in the next part, we'll uncover exactly how to do that. How to guard your sacred light without closing your heart. You can love deeply and still walk away. You can forgive completely and still choose silence. Because healing doesn't always look like reunion. Sometimes it looks like distance. A spiritually intelligent woman doesn't build walls. She builds thresholds, and not everyone is meant to cross them. For years you may have confused boundaries with punishment, as if saying no was an act of cruelty, as if protecting your peace meant betraying love. But now you know a boundary is not rejection, it's a declaration of value. It's saying, my energy is sacred, and not everyone gets to touch it. Because when you've spent your life absorbing emotions, decoding silences, and carrying the unspoken weight of others, you begin to realize that empathy without discernment is a form of self-betrayal. True compassion requires clarity, and clarity sometimes requires distance. You were never meant to be endlessly available. You were meant to be aligned, and alignment demands separation from what distorts your truth. It's not about cutting people off with anger. It's about no longer negotiating your peace to earn connection. You stop over-explaining. You stop managing other people's discomfort. You stop apologizing for your intuition. And in that quiet refusal, your nervous system finally exhales. That's what sacred boundaries do. They regulate your energy before the world consumes it. They teach you that self-respect is not resistance, it's rhythm, because your empathy is powerful, but without edges, it becomes porous. And everything that touches you starts to rewrite you. You lose your voice in the name of harmony, your strength in the name of love. But when you begin to hold your center, when you no longer rush to fix every broken thing, you start to notice something profound. The world around you recalibrates. The manipulative grow quiet, the envious lose access, and those who love you in truth, they rise to meet you. Because boundaries don't push away real love, they filter it. They remove everything that imitates care but feeds on your light. It's not that you become hard, you become hallowed. Your presence becomes rarer, more intentional. You no longer chase being understood, you create space for resonance. And when your energy shifts like this, something miraculous happens. You stop attracting people who need saving. You start attracting people who can see you. The ones who are not intimidated by your clarity, but inspired by it. The ones who don't need to dim you to feel bright. The ones who know that love without respect is just dependency dressed as devotion. That is sacred connection. It's not the intensity of feeling that defines it, but the mutual safety of being fully seen. So if you've ever wondered, how do I love without losing myself? This is the answer. You don't protect your heart by closing it. You protect it by staying conscious. Because the priestess does not retreat, she refines. Her silence is not absence, it's intelligence. Her distance is not rejection, it's reverence. And her boundaries, they are not walls against love, but gates through which only love can enter. And once you begin to live this way, you realize something sacred. The ones who were meant for you will never be threatened by your light. They will stand in it, not against it. And in the next part, we'll uncover what happens when you do. When your light no longer bends to please, but begins to lead. When you stop dimming your light to make others comfortable, you stop living as a reflection and start living as a source. This is the quiet revolution of spiritually intelligent women. They do not fight the darkness, they outgrow it. Because the truth is, you were never meant to be understood by everyone. You were meant to awaken a few, and awakening rarely looks gentle. Your presence was always a mirror, yes, but now it becomes a torch. You no longer reflect what others hide, you illuminate what they can become, and that is why your light matters. Not because it's perfect, but because it's true. You have walked through every projection, every misunderstanding, every withdrawal disguised as concern. You've been the healer, the empath, the forgiver, and for so long you believed that peace meant being untouched. But now you know, peace is not the absence of wounds, it's the integration of them. Every moment you refused to shrink, every silence you chose instead of explaining, every boundary you built out of self-respect. It wasn't distance, it was direction. And that direction has been leading you here, to this awareness. You are not the misunderstood one, you are the mirror of consciousness itself. Jung said that enlightenment is not imagining figures of light, but making the darkness conscious. And that is exactly what you've done, not only in others, but within yourself. Because the real alchemy was never about turning pain into peace, it was about turning perception into power. Now when you walk into a room, you no longer sense the envy, you sense the projection. You no longer absorb the tension, you name it. You no longer confuse detachment with indifference, you embody discernment. This is what true sovereignty feels like. You observe without absorbing, you empathize without erasing yourself. You love without losing your center. You've stopped chasing validation and started vibrating truth, and that vibration doesn't need approval. It creates resonance. It calls in only what matches your frequency. You are no longer the mirror that breaks under pressure. You are the prism, transforming light into color. And yes, some will still misread your calm as arrogance, your silence as distance, your self-trust as rebellion. But that's only because they haven't met that part of themselves yet. And maybe your presence is the invitation they need. Because this world doesn't heal through more noise. It heals through embodied awareness, through women who remember who they are. so let them feel what they need to feel. You are no longer responsible for their projections. You are responsible only for your frequency. Walk in it, speak from it, love through it. Because your light is not fragile, it's instructive. It doesn't ask to be seen, it teaches others how to see. And if, while watching this, something in you whispers, "This is me," trust that voice. It's not new, it's your soul remembering its own reflection. You were never too much, you were always medicine. Because when one woman stands in her light, she doesn't just illuminate herself, she illuminates the path for others. And if this message found you, it's not by accident. It's a reminder, a mirror, a moment of remembering what you already are. So if it spoke to something deep within you, leave a light behind for another woman to find. Tap the heart, share this message, so it can reach those who are still apologizing for their light. Because somewhere right now there's a woman questioning her worth, and your small act might be the sign she was praying for. That's how the light spreads, quietly, softly, from one awakened heart to another. We'll meet again in the next video, where we'll go even deeper into what it means to stay soft in a world that keeps testing your strength.